Good morning everybody and welcome to my channel. If you are new, if you are not new, welcome back. My name is in fact Natalie. And to all those new people, I hope you stay and look around a little bit. I am once again posting, which is super cool. Now, I have been gone for a couple of months, as I said, dealing with some personal stuff, like a lot of personal stuff, but I am back, and that's really all that matters. Now, while I was gone, I started reading books again because I have to. It's kind of the whole point of this channel. And I listened to a book like 2 weeks ago. This was supposed to be made 2 weeks ago, by the way, but I listened to a book 2 weeks ago that got me so incredibly heated, so angry, that I had to talk about it. First of all, it is hands down the worst book I have ever read. I mean, I have read some books with bad characters or bad plot twists, but like hands down, this is a book that willingly drops the ball in every aspect at every corner, and I have never listened or read something like it ever. I'm not even gonna ask you guys if you know what book it is because you saw the thumbnail to click on this video. The book is My Roommate is a Vampire. You may have noticed that I do not have this book in my hand. I usually like having the books that I talk about with me. I didn't buy this book. No, it's so bad that I genuinely didn't even buy it. How did I read it? I listened to an audiobook of it on Spotify. I have talked about this before, but a really great way to get into books if you don't have time for books is to listen to them, and if you have Spotify Premium, you automatically get like 15 hours of listening time. Did it just start raining? It just started absolutely storming outside. But what I'm trying to say is you can get free audiobook time if you have Spotify Premium, so that's what I use to listen to the book that we're talking about today. But yeah, we're gonna get into this. We're gonna do this just like normal with the description and then the non-spoilers and then the spoilers. It's gonna be real easy today, and I am so sorry if you can hear the absolute thunderstorm that is going on outside. I have no control over that. True love is at stake in this charming debut romantic comedy. Romance? Never mind. Cassie Greenberg loves being an artist, but it's a tough way to make a living. On the brink of eviction, she's desperate when she finds a too-good-to-be-true apartment in a beautiful Chicago neighborhood. Cassie knows there has to be a catch. Only someone with a secret to hide would rent out a room for that price. Of course, her new roommate, Frederick J. Fitzwilliam, is far from normal. He sleeps all day, is out all night in business, and talks like he walked out of a Regency romance novel. He also leaves Cassie heart-melting notes around the apartment, cares about her art, asks her about her day, and he doesn't look half bad shirtless on the rare occasions they're both home and awake. But when Cassie finds bags of blood in the fridge that definitely weren't there earlier, Frederick has to come clean. Cassie's sexy new roommate is a vampire, and he has a proposition for her. You might be thinking, Natalie, you're being so harsh, you're being so mean. It doesn't sound like a bad book. I mean, you've read Wattpad. Wattpad is way worse. Wrong. So wrong. This is at par or below every romance fanfiction I've ever read on Wattpad, and that's being generous, because I have read some top-tier romance fanfiction on Wattpad, alright? This hot garbage. Now, without getting into spoilers, Cassie, the main character, a total YA character, a total Mary Sue. She is just the most quirky, cute individual. You know, she's just so down on her luck and things just aren't working out for her, and you'd think that would be a huge character flaw, but it's not. It's not. That's not a character flaw. Bad things happening to you is not a character flaw. I don't know. She just seems like someone who's very quirky by being sad but artsy. I mean, look, she's very relatable sometimes, but like she's just a fan fiction character. Was this book made fan fiction first? Based on Reddit, yes, it indeed started as a fan fiction and then became its own book. I am so severely not shocked. But Cassie, let's get more into Cassie. She's this artsy blonde girl who forgets how to present herself and how to act. She's so ditzy, you know, and she's too clumsy to keep a job or at least get an interview. And her friend is just a successful gay man and she doesn't know what to do about it. Isn't she so relatable? Don't you just relate yet? But wait, because she's an artistic genius. But not in the normal, cool way, in the totally misunderstood kind of way. You know how some people look at Picasso and they go, that's not art, and then other people look at Picasso and go, no, this is the best art ever. I'm a Picasso fan, by the way, I'm allowed to say that. Surely the art world could just never handle what she does, you know, taking useless pieces of trash and putting them into art. It's too big brained for the art world. But that's not the issue. Okay, I'm going hard on the main character, but I cannot tell you that is not the biggest issue of this book, alright? She's fine, despite her being actually the exact same thing as my 13-year-old creepypasta fanfiction character. She's fine. In fact, I actually really liked her in the first couple of chapters. I mean, the first 8 out of 20. I really did like her because I wanted to like her because I wanted to root for her success. Because it's not a long read. I think it was 8 hours or something. It does have you at certain points screaming into a pillow over the bad decisions being made and the actual inconsistency in character and plot. So, you know, if you can get past that, it's not a bad read. I'm sure this doesn't surprise anybody, but Frederick and Cassie get together. I mean, that's how rom-coms work, so settle down, people. Settle down. Now, the way that Frederick and Cassie meet is kind of strange, a little bit strange, and that might be bias coming from the audiobook because the voice that they gave him isn't really, attractive in any way. It's kind of, awful. I kind of hated it and hated every second of it. It made me actively not like him as much, so that's just bias coming from the audiobook. I'm sure if I was reading the book, maybe I could make him sound more attractive, but just the way he sounds doesn't give off, super sexy vampire. It gives off, who is this motherfucker role-playing, you know? That is to say, I did not like him almost immediately. Straight off the bat, I did not like Frederick. He seems like a bit of an oddball. Obviously, vampire, not very used to modern society. But, even though that is kind of the point, it makes you wonder why Cassie doesn't suspect anything just a little bit sooner. She takes a really long time to figure out that he's not from this century, that he's a vampire, and I get it. If you don't know vampires exist, why would you assume someone's a vampire? I understand that fact. But to not expect anything, not a thing, when this man is, the creepiest guy ever. I don't know how you could just ignore all the red flags. Some of them, sure, but all of them? All of them? I just realized I've looked directly at myself and not the camera. So that switches right now. Yeah, I haven't recorded in a while, so if I'm looking directly into the viewfinder and not the camera, that is why. I will change that now. But that's to say, he talks straight out of the 18th century, and he dresses the same. He hasn't even tried to adjust to the modern age, and I understand that's the whole point of the book is that he doesn't know, but it's incredibly annoying. It's so incredibly annoying. At least the voice made it annoying. Maybe this whole thing would be better if I just read the book instead of listened to the audiobook, but you know what? Quitters quit. Winners don't. So, what was that even? What am I even saying? Of course, there's explanations for everything, because you have to have explanations for people to give a shit. But it's hard listening to him in the beginning versus the end, and how he acts in the beginning versus the end, and just trying to understand why it's all happening. Maybe I'm too stupid. Maybe that's why. Maybe I'm just not understanding these big brain moves. Or maybe the book sucks. Maybe that's all I would need to get across, is that I think the book sucks. I'm so sorry. I did not mean to come back on such a negative note. Maybe I should have done Paper Girls of Paris first, but I didn't. I chose this book because of the rage. I hope you guys have a discussion with me. If you've read this book, legitimately, leave a comment and tell me how you felt about it. I need to know if it's just the audiobook or if this book really does suck. But hey, I could forgive thing after thing after thing. I could forgive it all. But this book legitimately put me in mental turmoil. I had, I'm not joking, one real panic attack and 2 times where I screamed my heart out into a pillow because I frankly could not handle this book. I ended this book thinking about how much I genuinely just wasted 8 to 9 hours of my life. You might be thinking, but hey, at least it wasn't so boring that you didn't finish, you know, that's happened with books before. You'd be wrong. You would once again be wrong. I actually legitimately lost brain cells reading this book. I could feel them dying inside my brain. Look, man, I'm sure USA Today or whoever put this book at #1 on their charts did some sort of poll, and people discussed and came up with the fact that this was a super great book. And I'm sure they enjoyed it specifically for chapter 15. But seriously, guys, that was like the only halfway decent part of the book was the scene. Now look, people find it fine. People find it good. Me, personally, Natalie Rachel, I cannot recommend this book. I actually don't see how it was published. Especially with the ending. The ending! Okay, so now that we've had the spoiler warning, I want to talk about spoilers. So first of all, we're going to talk about 3 chapters in specific. We're going to talk about chapter 15, which I just told you guys is a sex chapter, and chapter 19 and 20, which is the end of the book. The absolute end of the book. So once again, if you don't want spoilers, skip to this timestamp, and we'll meet up at the end. First of all, I'm not this book's target demographic. I should be, as a young adult who has like fantasy novels and stuff, but I'm not, because this book is clearly a TikTok book talk kind of book. Like, it's made for the moms and the teenagers who just want a spicy book. Like, they don't really care, but they care enough to get a 25-minute sex chapter into this book. That's the target demographic, not me, alright? I will stick to my non-fantasy, I guess. Does this count as a fantasy because it has 3 vampires in it? I don't know. But back to the 25-minute sex chapter. It's graphic. I'm not kidding. It's graphic. Alright? It's super graphic. And I'm hoping you're not an actual child because I don't want to scare you. But for those of us who are above the age of 17, the author goes so in depth about things like fellatio and female head, and I'm not even getting into how in depth they went into actual penetration. Look, I get it. This is some people's entire life or meaning for reading is just the good sex in books. Me personally, someone who was asexual 3 years ago, not the biggest fan. Honestly, I mean, this is a big no. A big no for me. And it was actually chapter 15 that gave me a panic attack because I was listening to it and I kept thinking, oh, it's over now. It's almost over now. Oh God, it's getting worse. Oh God, it's getting worse. And then at some point I had to stop because the chapter ended. I went on a walk, and then when I got back inside, I had a full mental breakdown over a vampire sex scene. That shit was so in-depth that my therapist admitted it had an effect on me. My therapist! I went 9 months with no panic attack just for some raunchy sex scene in a TikTok book to give me one. So you know what? Maybe I wasn't that strong to begin with. Maybe some people out there, maybe even you, maybe you like the sex parts of books where characters really don't have that much in common or that much chemistry and they don't really know each other, maybe that's your whole thing. Maybe if you squint, you'll like it. I don't know. But the ending was so despicable, so actually dog shit, that I can't endorse the book. So what happens? For those of you who haven't read and aren't reading the book because I've warded you off of it, what happens? Well, Frederick, we all know Frederick at this point, he's the vampire. So he is supposed to be arranged to marry another vampire lady who he met 100 years ago. And he doesn't want to. So he tells her parents he doesn't want to, and they kidnap him. Oh no. Now, as a human, what do you think Cassie did? Do you think Cassie, A, stayed out of it like she should have, B, threatened them, or C, any other answer, by the way? C is any other answer. You'd be wrong. She picked B. She threatened immortal vampires. She didn't just threaten them, by the way. She blackmailed them. She blackmailed vampires. Wait until you hear this plan. Just wait until you hear it. You're not gonna believe your ears. So Cassie decides that in all her infinite wisdom, she is going to use the vampire's lack of knowledge about the internet to threaten to expose them on TikTok. Now, if you have ever used TikTok, you would understand how absolutely brain dead this plan is, because if she actually did try to expose vampires on TikTok, she would be labeled a crazy person, blow up as a meme, her life would be ruined. But maybe you can suspend disbelief for 5 seconds, unlike me, and think, well, she wouldn't actually, right? And you'd actually be more correct. You'd be correct. She doesn't have to. Cassie doesn't know anything about TikTok either, by the way, which is why she comes up with this plan. But she actively makes a video with a vampire in it. It's one of Frederick's friends. And he's like, oh, vampires are real and they're all around you and blah, 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 blah. And then he comes on and like, you know? And it's like, oh no, TikTok? So she makes this video and then she sends a letter to the head vampiress of Frederick's family, who is like super scary up until this chapter, by the way. She's super threatening. And then this chapter rolls around, she's like, please come here, you've left us no choice but to talk. And you're worried for Cassie because you're like, oh my god, this vampire woman is about to rip out this girl's throat so she can't post this. You're thinking, there's no possible way she gets out of this alive after threatening vampires. But no, Scary Vampire later caves in about 2 seconds. I think it was 4 minutes in book time before the whole thing was wrapped up. Ridiculous. You might be thinking, wow, all that anxiety about thinking Girly Pop was going to die over a guy she's known for a month must have been worth it because they get back together. No. Stop thinking like that. Seriously. The ending is so bad. It's so bad that it needs to be talked about. Because you're anxious and you're worried and you're thinking this plot is gonna go somewhere and lead to some sort of conflict. But right before it gets to that conflict that isn't conflict because the lady just gives up whatever and Frederick goes back home, the author has decided to dull the tension a little bit by adding a random old man. Who is this old man? Well, this random old man is a neighbor of the people who have kidnapped Frederick, a human neighbor who doesn't know they're vampires, but suspects that they're drug dealers. So this old man decides to not mind his own business, even though he doesn't even need to be in the story, to go walk up to Cassie and be like, are you here to buy drugs? And she goes, what? And he's like, they're so weird. They just come out only during night and they have people over all the time and blah, 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 blah. And Cassie, in all her wisdom, remember, infinite wisdom, she goes, no, I'm here to check their internet. They don't pay their internet bill. And this old man's like, ha ha ha, that's exactly what I thought they'd be like. They're the type of people to not pay their internet bill. And you're just left thinking, what just happened? You might be thinking, well, why did that happen? Well, the author must have had like a page limit she had to reach because she obviously needed to write that interaction. Needless to say, all it accomplishes is completely tearing away any and all tension in that entire scene. And just to kill it further, right after that, the vampire monarch woman, completely comes to the door, whining and whimpering over this TikTok video and completely surrenders. So overall, the ending is just not worth it. Don't read the book. But yeah, guys, I will not be ending this video talking about the author because, quite frankly, no. It's my review, I don't have to. I've already talked a lot about how I don't recommend this book, but I can't stop you from reading the book. So you know what? If you want to go read a fanfiction that turned into a real book, like Pinocchio in the Night, you go for it. This brought me back to the time of Wattpad in 2013, and you know what? I'll give it that. It was kind of pleasant to go back. But reminded me why I choose real books and not Wattpad fanfiction anymore, which is also nice. That being said, if you agree with me, leave a skull in the comments and let me know why you thought it was bad. And if you don't agree with me, leave a comment telling me why you think it's good. And if you haven't read the book yet and you listened to this whole thing, tell me if you're going to read the book or not. Let's engage in some conversation, people. I've been gone for like 3 months. I'm gonna get some videos stockpiled this week, so hopefully I should be posting for the next month, 2 months, maybe? And then on top of that, I hope to do some more mental health videos soon because I know you guys really like those. But thank you guys for watching me rant, and I love you all so much, and I will see you guys later. Goodbye!